can see that we're looking at Google. This is actually Google right here. Any website is composed of elements that are on the screen. What are some of the elements that we see right now? We see links in the top right. We see an input in the middle, some buttons, as well as a footer at the bottom. In order to build these things, we have to have an understanding of what HTML is, as well as CSS. So in order also to do your work, you guys are going to need to understand how to move around on your computer. Move around inside of our folders. So for example, I'm now at this place called desktop. Typically, you guys in your lives have just used a UI, a user interface. So for example, you can open up Finder and you can say, hey, here's my desktop. But if you want to be a programmer, you gotta learn how to move around on the terminal. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm on my terminal. I'm going to move into a folder called Mariana, because that's the class that we're in, right? I suggest you guys do the same thing before you start the class. Create one folder called Mariana. Save all your work inside that folder. Okay, so right now I'm going to run a couple more commands. I'm going to run rm-rf, which can remove a folder and all of its contents. Additionally, if I type in ls, my bad, you guys will see this tells us what's inside the folder, right? So let's go ahead and look inside of Mariana. Do I have anything inside of here, guys? No, that's because I just made it, right? So let's go ahead and create a new folder, and we're going to call it Google. You guys see when I run the mkdir command, we created a folder called Google. Those of you who aren't running on Windows, you may need to have run a different command, but you guys got to learn this eventually. Sooner or later, this is one of the basic instructions that you guys need to know. After we create this folder, we can move into it using our terminal by typing in cd, which means change directory, and then the name of the folder. Do you guys expect to see anything inside that folder?
No, it's it.
Yeah, we just created it, so how can there be anything inside of here? And that's the exact behavior that we observe. So I'm going to go ahead and create some additional files by running a command called touch. And I can simply name the files that I want to create. I'm going to create something called index.html, style.css, script.js. When I issue this command, you guys will see that inside of this folder, we're going to have 3 folders created, or 3 files. And look, we do in fact have 3 files created. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and open up our code editor by typing in code and then period to open up a tool called VS Code. This is going to be your sword, I think. If you're in my class, this is going to be your sword, okay? So this is where we write our code. If you install a plugin called HTML5, snippets, HTML5 snippets, it will, oh my bad, I don't even have it installed. I think it should do this by default. Okay, so if you type in HTML5, or HTML, you'll see that your code editor is helping you. It's suggesting commands to you. And specifically, I want this one right here with the :5. If I scroll down to it and I hit enter, it's gonna produce all of this code right here. And you can think of this code right here as the basic skeleton of a web application. This is the simplest it gets right here. There are 2 main parts of this code right now for an HTML5 file. There's something called the head, which will describe your web page, and there's something called a body, which is where we put all the content in that we want to show up on our application, on our web application. Okay, so now let's open up VS Code. You guys need to install this program called Live Server, an extension called Live Server. When you do that, you're going to be able to see an icon down here in the bottom left that says Go Live. If I click Go Live, don't worry, I'm recording this so you can watch later if you guys are trying to take photos. So if I click Go Live, you guys will see that VS Code is telling us that the server started on port 5500. That means we can go to, or it will automatically open up our browser and then navigate to this URL and open up this file right here. What file do you guys see that? What's the file it says right here? Index. The reason why it says index is because there is an expectation with web that the file name is index. That being said, why don't we see anything inside of here on this web page?
This is an empty document.
Yeah, because we didn't do anything inside of here. So we can type in H1 and we'll say hello, fancy pan. Now you guys will see that if we go back to our browser and look at it, we now see fancy pan. Amazing. The live server will automatically update the browser whenever we do something. So if I hit in a P element, I can do hello. Okay, my bad, I completely skipped the part. Let me step back. Okay, in HTML, guys, there's this concept of wrapping elements, okay? As well as closing and opening tags. So if you guys want to create a big header, right? If you want to create a big header, then what you want to do is you want to write down this right here. You guys see the syntax? It's a, this is called on line 10, we have an opening H1 tag. On line 12, we have the closing tag. In HTML, we have to have an opening and we have to have a closing tag, except in a couple of special cases. Whatever goes inside of this is going to be put on the screen. So let's just say it again, hello, fancy pan. We can do this as many times as we want. And we will produce a bunch of content on the screen. There are many, many other tags that you guys have to understand. Okay? You're gonna learn them soon. You're gonna learn about the other ones, but right now let's just talk about the tags. You have opening and closing tag. And what goes inside of them is gonna be what shows up on the screen. Does anyone have any questions so far?
How can I install the extension?
If you guys open up your VS Code in a second, there's gonna be this one right here that says extensions. You click it and just type in live server. This is how we will run our web applications right here. This extension right here, live server. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so in addition to us having, so for example, right, we have an H1 tag, we also have a P tag. Here's some content. There are many different tags that we can have. We can have something called a UL tag, which consists of unordered lists. And then inside of that, we have another LI tag, which are list items. What's something that's in a list? Bananas, apples, oranges, lemons. What is this a list of? Yes. So we got our fruit here. And you guys will see that this reflects on our UI. But what's the problem with our UI right now?
There's no menu.
There's a simpler problem, I would say. We don't have colors. There's no such thing as a website in the world that does not have a color on it other than black. So in order to do that, we're going to introduce something to our HTML called CSS. And I'm going to show you the simplest use case right now. So our HTML elements, we can do what is called inline styling, in line with our HTML. So within our opening tag, we can pass it what is called a property. This thing here on the left is called a property. As a property of style equals, and then something in the strings. What's inside of the strings is what we call a value. We're going to tell it what to do. So for example, we can say color is red. And now we can see that we had a red header. Additionally, there are many, many other styles and properties that we can fix or change, right? So we can do something called text decoration, underline. Where'd I go? Did I close it? Ah, there it goes. So what did we just see happen, guys? Because we applied a style called, we applied an inline style called text decoration underline, we were able to get an underline. Does anyone have any questions? So just know that our HTML will not work by itself, basically. Yes, it can, but you have to have CSS in order to be able to style things. Okay, so let's go ahead and, there are many other different style and key properties, but we're only gonna focus on style today. Actually, we're gonna show you a couple more, actually, now that I think about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get going on our application, okay? So we're gonna save, We're gonna refresh. The first thing we need to do is build a navigation bar, right? If you look at Google, we see in the top. We see in the top.
Should we be following along with you?
Say again?
Should we be following along with you?
No. We're just no, not yet. We're gonna do it in a second. So right now we have our. Why do I see? Okay, so I want to see Google. I'm confusing myself. My bad. Okay, so we see a navigation bar on the top right. We see an image in the middle, an input, and some buttons. So let's go ahead and apply some of these concepts. One of the most important tags is called a div tag, and this is used for putting things where we want. It's just basically to divide things across the screen. The first thing I'm going to do inside of here, inside this div tag, is I'm going to put a I'm going to nest something in it. I'm going to nest an anchor element that has a property called href, and this is going to go to. We'll leave this empty for right now. What's it say on Google? Gmail. We're gonna copy the other one down, links. Or images, my bad, images. What are these two things right here? These are called buttons/icons. Specifically icons right now, I would say. So we're gonna Google something called Font Awesome. Font Awesome, I actually already have it right here. I'm gonna show you Googling it. Font Awesome W3 schools. If you guys Google it, you guys will see a link of how we can get this into our applications. We go to Font Awesome, and then we go to Font Awesome Intro, and you guys will see an HTML tag that we need to copy. So we copy this tag, we jump back to our document, and we paste it in the head tag. Once again, the head tag is different from the body in which it describes our page, and it basically describes our page. So you guys will see now we have our Gmail images, and we now need to get our icons into our screen. So we'll go down here, and now we can see that here's an example of how we can, of the fonts. So we'll copy this, we'll jump back, and we'll paste. You see, right now I'm just gonna paste an example and make sure we can get it working correctly. So you guys can now see that we have 3 icons. Excellent. But the problem is what? These icons are not the correct icons, right? So we're gonna go back to our documentation. We're gonna look for, I don't know, what does it look like? What was it, a hamburger? Just say a circle and some icon. What's that thing called? Fuck. Nah.
It's dots. String dots.
It's dots, maybe? I'm gonna choose this one. Fuck it. Take that one right there. Okay, so we're gonna take that one. We're gonna pretend that Windows is Google, okay? Or Google is Windows. Okay, now we have a Windows. Amazing. So now we're gonna copy this one more time down. And what was the circle? Let's just pretend this thing is our circle, okay? You guys can spend more time looking at this later. We got a lot to go, so we're just gonna move forward, okay? So you guys can see that we now have our 4 things, right? But the problem is what? It's not on the correct position inside of our class. It's not in the correct place, right? Isn't it on Google? Isn't it on the right? Right? How can we get this on the right? So we can do something called passing a style to our div, and we can say padding left is 100 pixels. Then this will move it left. And if we did 200 pixels, it will move it farther from the left. So this thing called padding is where do I move things inside of me? What is me, guys? On line 11, you can see me is a div. I know that you guys may not be able to see it right now, but let's go ahead and give it a background color of red. So there you go, me. When I say padding left, that says move everything inside of me from the left 200 pixels. We can also do the same thing for margin. Margin is how far I am away from something. So margin left, we'll say 200 pixels. Now you guys will see if I save the file that this red box, me, what we're typing inside of on line 11, will move to the right 200 pixels. It's gonna show up exactly where Gmail starts right here. And that is the behavior we observe. So now you guys will know, I hope you guys have a better understanding of what margin and padding do. So we don't have any questions about that, okay? Padding is how move things inside of me. Margin is move me away from something. So if I delete padding that dash left right here, 200 pixels. I save it. What do you guys expect to have happen? Can someone help me? Anyone?
Heading to the left, you're going to move everything to the right by 200 pixels.
If I delete this, what happens?
Delete it, it'll shift to the left.
What will shift to the left?
The red box.
No. Yes. So we delete the padding. That's not actually the behavior that we observe. We the padding, we'll see all the things inside of this red box move to the front of the box. Okay? We can also do padding top, 200 pixels. If I save this, what do you guys expect to have happen? Yes, the text will move away from the top of this box, and you'll see that the box gets bigger. Amazing. Okay, so enough fucking around. We're gonna do this for real. So we got a box. Let's go ahead and add a style sheet. Okay? So once again, my bad. Here, we're going back to the header. Do you guys see how this tab right here, it says document up there? The head tag will have many different things inside of it, the truth is. But right now we're gonna start small. Inside this tag called the title, we can change it to say Google, and you guys will see that our page tab updates. Amazing. Additionally, we need to link to other files. So there's this concept of siloing our code, siloing it. So what I mean by that is that we should not be writing a lot of code in line. So we're going to link to another file, and this is where we're going to put all of our CSS. So when I type in link, you guys will see that it's suggested to me. And you know, the most important thing you guys can think about right now is this href property. Its value is a file called style.css. Remember we created one just a few moments ago? So in order to prove that this works, CSS, we need to target an element and apply some styles to it to make sure that this worked correctly. So I'm going to target right now. Okay, this is called CSS selectors. Okay, we have an element here in our HTML called body, right? So inside of our CSS, we can simply name the HTML element. We'll name it. We'll give some curly braces and opening and closing curly braces. We'll type in BGC, which means background color. We'll press tab and it auto completes. I'm going to give it a blue background to test. And we prove that this file is now connected. If you guys name this file incorrectly or have a different path, then this will stop working. You save it, the path is incorrect. It cannot find that style file. So let's go ahead and fix it and make sure it works. Okay. All right, so let's get serious. Right now, our problem is what? That this red thing is too far. There's too much padding and margin here. Now we can leave that. I changed my mind. So we want to have everything go to the right, right? On Google, all this stuff is on the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to give this div a class name. This one might be one of the most important ones. A class name of nav. We're going to target our nav. We're going to target it by class, which is denoted by this period. And then we're going to say background color, background color, orange. If I save it, I expect there to be an orange background color. Nice. That's because we targeted it correctly right here. If I move the dot, it does not work. This works for any element that has a class name of what? Nav. Okay, so let's move forward. We're gonna now do something called flex, okay? You guys are gonna have to play with this game over the next few days because this stuff is kind of complicated, but we're gonna do something called df and display flex. If we do that, we're gonna be able to get some magical code that just basically helps us to put elements on the screen where we want. So we'll do display flex, and then we'll say we want our elements to display on the right-hand side, so we're gonna do flex. My bad. Justify content, flex ends. I think this will work. Now if we save, you guys will see everything here is on the right-hand side. Amazing. There are many other attributes. You could also do center. If we do center, what do you guys expect to have happen with this UI? It's going to put everything directly in the center. We also see that behavior, okay? So right now we're going to do flex in. Okay, so this is a quick introduction to how we can target an element with using CSS by its class name, right there on line 1. We can apply many key value pairs, which will affect its style. Additionally, there's something called pseudo selectors. So what if we wanted to give each one of these things a margin on the right? Well, we can jump back to our HTML. We can go up to this thing. We can say style equals margin right, 10 pixels. And you guys will observe that on the Gmail will be a little bit further away than the other ones. And is that right? It's because we said, hey, give me 10 pixels. Don't put me within 10 pixels of anything else. Okay, so we can just copy this, right? Does that work? And now we see we have some good spacing. But that is not actually a good way to do this. This is stupid. If we do repeated code like this is going to become a nightmare to deal with later. So I'm going to delete this, and then I'm going to go to CSS, and we're going to write some better CSS. What we're going to do is we're going to target any child of nav. So we're going to look at our nav. We're going to say, hey, any child that is an anchor tag or an I tag. And I did this wrong. So what here, this thing right here, greater than, this is saying, hey, find the nav, the class name nav on the screen, and any child of it that is an anchor and an I, do something with it. So in this case, I'm gonna do margin, right? 20 pixels. I did this wrong. We go back, and we can see that we still have our spacing. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, so this is just all about putting stuff on the screen where we want. Okay, I'm gonna put the background color back here because I want to see the elements on the screen while I'm working. So I'm gonna say red. So you guys see now that we have our nav bar and it has 2 links and 2 icons, okay? So at this point, we also need to get Google's images, right? So we're gonna copy over here, we're gonna jump over, oh my bad, I should explain this right here. So we're looking at Google. One of the best things you guys can do if you guys wanna build an application is look at the source code of the application. So if you if you click Command Option I or Control Option I using Chrome, it will open up something called a Developer Tools. When you do that, you can click Elements and simply look at all of our code. You can look at the code that it took to build this thing, right? You can expand it, and you guys will see that this stuff is really complicated, right? It gets more complicated. So anyway, developer tools are going to be very, very important for you guys one day. So specifically though, I want you guys to know what this thing does right here. This little thing, this mouse right here, it allows you to find a specific element. So if we click it, and then we hover our mouse over, it's gonna tell you which element that is. I click it, and notice how it points towards the code that renders this Google image, right? And inside of here, you guys can double click it and even edit it. So imagine if I went to Facebook. Let's go ahead and look at this. Ooh. Okay, here's my image. If I replace this, oops. Oh, image. I expect this to work. It doesn't work. Well, let's try this different one. I'm gonna expect this Vietnam thing right here. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna say that we're in Russia. You guys will notice that this changes down here. So developer tools right here, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. It's just, you can even edit elements on it. So for example, if I double click the image again, I can just delete the image. You guys will see that our image disappears. So anyway, that's not the most important thing right now. Let's get that image so we can display it. We're gonna copy it. We're gonna get this URL. We're gonna paste it inside of our URL. We're gonna hit enter. Fuck. What the hell, Google?
It's not an image.
It's not an image?
You need to add the Google.com. It's an internal link. It's not with a slash.
Yeah. Why does it not work? Does that work? Okay, that did work. So now we got the file. We now figure out how to get files from a page. I'm gonna save it. I'm going to my desktop and go. You gotta know how to move around your application. So we're gonna go to Mariana, Google, and then we're gonna create a new folder here. We're gonna call it IMG. And then we're gonna save inside of here. We're gonna call it logo. I don't know, logo sounds good for right now. You guys will notice now that if I look inside of our folder, we now have this thing called image, and inside of that we do in fact have our logo. Nice. Okay, so let's jump back to index.html and let's go ahead and create a new div. So we're gonna call this one Jumbotron. Okay, we have a class named Jumbotron. We're gonna say hello inside of it. Oh no, we're gonna put an image tag in. This image tag is gonna have a source, and its source is gonna be images. All right, image, what? Logo.png. Okay, I'm gonna save the application. I'm gonna jump back to our application. Now we see that we have Google. Amazing. Okay, so now we can go ahead and go back to CSS, and we're gonna go ahead and focus. We're gonna go ahead and add the other stuff. What do we need down here? We need an input. This is one of the HTML elements that does not need to have a closing tag. It is self-closed. Right here. Do you see how there's this? See how this is all the other ones, we don't have a closing slash on the opening tag. Well, the input, you can do this way, which is self-closed, or you can do it this way. Oh, fuck. What? Come on. What? Does it keep doing that? Okay, that works. So now we have two different inputs. They both work the same. The input, it's okay to do it. To do it either way you want. We can, like I said, every single different type of HTML element will have its own like unique properties that you can pass it. If you guys see me refresh the page, I won't. You guys will notice that this input is not focused, right? But for example, if you go to Google and you refresh the page, as soon as the page loads, this input is focused and you can start typing. So we're now going to say autofocus. If we pass in the autofocus, we go to our page and we refresh, you guys will see our input is automatically focused. So this is helping our user happiness levels. Okay, so now we're also going to introduce some buttons. And our buttons, we're going to have two of them. One of them is going to say Google search. Google search. The other one's going to say I'm feeling lucky. Okay, so we now have the Jumbotron. I'm not really sure of what is in, like, how big it is and etc. So let's go ahead and go to our CSS. Let's target it. Let's find it and then apply some styles so we can see it on the screen. We're gonna give it a border of 1 pixel, solid blue. Okay, there goes our Jumbotron. So we want our Jumbotron to order the elements from top down. So we now need to apply a flex again. So we're gonna say df for display flex. Then we're going to jump down and we're going to say flex direction is column. The reason why we have to do that is because by default, flex direction is already row. So when we want it to be a column, we just say column. Amazing. Okay, so now we want our image to be smaller, right? It's too big. So we do image and we'll say, we'll target our image tag and then we'll say the width is 650 pixels, the height is 200 pixels, and we'll see it looks good. But we want to center everything on our screen, right? So we're gonna say we're gonna say inside of our Jumbotron, we're gonna say justify content center, and now align item center, which centers it on both axes, on the XY axis and on the YZ axis. Doesn't seem to be working. So I'm gonna move this around a little bit. We're gonna figure out what's going on. Why is this not centering? I expect this to be centered. Yep, Jumbotron. Flex column, justify content center. All right, we're gonna close this console. We're gonna look at our elements. Inside of our Jumbotron, we have an image. Here's an image. I want this thing to move to the right. Interesting. All right, let me think about this for a second. We're gonna move forward, okay? So what's our problem right now? Our problem right now is our buttons. Even though we have our things in the center of the screen, we want our buttons to move from left to right. So now we're gonna wrap our buttons inside of another div. I'm gonna save it, and now you guys see that the buttons are down here, but we want this to center. What the fuck, why isn't it centering? Jumbotron? Ooh. Oh, it is background color.
Just centered, but it's the whole width.
Yeah, I'm confused. Why is our Jumbotron so, I want it to be the full width.
You can make it width of 50% or something. As a test.
Doesn't seem to be
It's
working.
not centered. Yeah.
I'm actually a little bit confused right now, to be honest with you. Align content, flex direction column. Deflex, displace flex. Okay, so let's try this. Let's say our height is 100% view height. Our width is 100% view width. I want this thing to sit in the center.
But you're centering the whole box, not the logo, right?
I want to center what's inside of our a box, right? So inside of our Jumbotron here, we have what? An image,
Then you've got to do it on the image line.
an input. No, well, we want to be able to center everything inside of the box. So I want to center the image, the input, and Google buttons.
Align text center.
Okay, let's try that. Line text. Oh, it's align item center. Ah, so fucking stupid. My bad. It's align items. Sorry, I do that sometimes. Sometimes I mess things up. So anyway, just know that sometimes we need to center things left and right, and sometimes we want to center it up and down. So let's go ahead and give us a height of let's just prove this one more time. We'll give it a height of 1,000 pixels, and you guys can see that if we were to delete justify content center, all the items inside of our orange box sit at the very top. Let's make this a little bit smaller so it's easier to understand. Okay, so that's because we don't have justify content center. But if we want to center it right here, we'll do justify content center. And now it sits nicely in the center. Do you have any questions so far? Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so we got everything kind of where we want, but we want our input to be bigger. So we can go back to our input, and we can give it we can give it a property of width, and we'll say, let's just test it, 500 pixels, save it. And I didn't think that worked. Save it. Okay, let's just go ahead and give it a style. So we're gonna say, hey, our input, let's make that width of, I don't know, 500 pixels. You guys can now see that our input is actually quite big. Nice. Okay, additionally, if we look at Google, you guys will see that when we hover, or that there's like some spacing between the input and its text. Remember, guys? Remember how we can do that? We can say padding of, I don't know, 20 pixels. We jump back over here, and now you guys see that spacing on the inside, right? Remember, padding is how far we want everything to move inside of us, and margin is how far we want things away from us. So you guys can see right here on the bottom, our buttons are hugging our input. Is that true on Google? No, it's not true. So we're going to make it move away. So in our input, we're going to say that our margin bottom is 25 pixels. So now you guys can see that we've moved this input away. Additionally, you guys will see on Google that this input is rounded. So we can say border radius, I don't know, 5 pixels. A little bit too small, 25 pixels. Okay, so we now have our thingy that's kind of centered. It's centered correctly, and also it has like a little bit of spacing away from the bottom of it, as well as a little bit of spacing inside of it. What if we want this text to be bigger? Say font size, 30 pixels. Now our text is bigger. Amazing. Additionally, you guys will see that when we hover on Google, there's a bit of a border that comes up. You guys see that? So this is where we copy and paste. I'm gonna click on this thingy. I'm gonna click on that input. I'm gonna close my Chrome here. I'm gonna look at, oh my bad. I'm gonna pull up this tab right here. This tab is powerful. I'm gonna find this thing, click it, input. Now we can see all the styles that are applied to this element, right? And then we'll go ahead and we'll look at we'll click this thing right here, toggle element state. We can change the state of the element. So for example, if I click this hover right here, see that little? It says toggle element state. If I click it, oops, hover. My bad. Active. That's interesting. Hover. Fuck. What am I looking at? Hover. What the fuck? Okay, my bad. 1 second, guys. I want you guys to know how to do this. So let's go ahead and search for, say, hover. Okay, it seems like I've done something wrong here. Doesn't matter. I'll show you how to do it myself. So for example, you can type in input, and we can also say, we can add additional attributes to it. So we can say when the thing is hovered, we're gonna do this, okay? We're gonna give it a color of red, for example. So now you guys can see that when I hover over it, our text becomes red. I see that? So we're saying, hey, on line, why can't I see the line number? What the fuck? On line 33, we're saying, hey, the input element, whenever I'm hovering over it, go ahead and give it a color of red. Right? But that's not actually what we want. So we're gonna say box shadow. So instead, we're just gonna copy the one from Google. We're gonna say, okay, I want this thing to be, I don't like this one actually. Card shadow. Oops. Okay, I like this one right here. So we're gonna copy. Where did I copy it? So just look at the examples, guys. You guys gotta get in the habit of looking at examples. It's the best thing you can do in the world, okay? So just to copy this one right here. So now we're just gonna say, okay, whenever we hover over it, we're gonna give it a box shadow, blah, 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 okay? Just cheat. It's okay to cheat sometimes. So now you guys will see that whenever we hover over our input, there's a little bit of a nice shadow. It gives it a nice effect. Okay, this is how we make our application sexy and beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and hover our button. We're gonna say its height is minimum 50 pixels. Its width is 150 pixels. And we'll see what happens. Okay, so that looks kind of like what it looks like. But you guys will notice that these also have hovering effects, right? As well as they have a little bit more spacing in between them. So we're gonna say margin left 10 pixels. We'll jump back to our application. We see we have more spacing. We'll go ahead and give it a border radius of 20 pixels. Now you can see that's kind of a lot. Let's do it 10 pixels. Now you can see that our button's starting to look like it. Let's go ahead and delete this red up here. That's bothering me. So we have our links up here. We have our icons. We have our text. We have this little thing right here. And also we have our button. Let's go ahead and apply some styles whenever we hover our button. So we'll do our button. We'll say when our button is hovered, we're gonna give it a border of 1 pixel solid gray. And you can see we have that effect as well with the button. You guys notice also that the text color changes, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do Command Shift C, click it, click the element. I'm gonna get the exact color. Where's this at? Why can I? Oops. Click it, click the button. Where's my? Usually I can look at the computer. Oh, here's the styles right here. We'll say color, and then you see that this is the exact color. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna say, okay, when our button is just normal, we're gonna say this is our color right here. This is the text color. And then whenever you hover over it, the color is now black. The color of the font of the text. Okay, so let's jump back. And now you can see that effect. That whenever we hover over the button, there's like an outline and the text inside of the button changes as well. You guys are gonna have to do a lot of practice yourselves, man. You guys are not gonna remember me showing you this. You guys gotta Google a lot. You gotta read documentation. There is no other solution. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is build our footer. So we're gonna have a footer at the very bottom. It's gonna have two little inputs inside of it. Two footer thingies right here, and we're gonna make them the full width of the screen, and we're gonna put some content inside of them. So once again, we're gonna create a new div. We're gonna call this, we'll give it a class name of footer. Okay, and in the side of this one, we're gonna have another div. We're gonna give this a class name of top footer. And then we're gonna have Vietnam in here, okay? We save, we go back, we see that we have this thing right here, right? But the problem is it's not in the right place. Remember guys, that's what a lot of our battle is, putting things in the right place. So what do we do now? Well, we want to say, let's go ahead and target our body. And let's make everything flex within our body. Deflex. What deflex? And then we're going to say, let's save it and see what happens. And you guys can see that we sort of fucked up our layout. Because we're now going from, instead of going from row layout, we're going for, we went to column, or it went to row layout by default. So now we're going to say flex direction, column. Okay, we kind of fixed everything. So let's give it a background color of orange. And now we can see that this is our entire web page, right? So now we can say, all right, let's spread out everything in our application. Let's spread them out on a vertical axis. We want everything inside of here to move to the very bottom. So let's go ahead and target that element real quick. I'm gonna say, let's give it some styling so that we can see it. So we're gonna target it. We're gonna say our element with the class name of footer. We're gonna give it a background color of blue. And now you can see it's right there, right? But we want it to push all the way down. So we're gonna go back up to our body and we're gonna say justify content space around. Maybe it's a line item space around. I always get these confused, to be honest with you. Say everything. We're gonna remove all our margin. Margin is 0 pixels. Okay, so we need this thing to go all the way down to the very bottom, okay? We'll say height is 100 view height. Okay, so we now need to make the screen at least, the body at least the full width of the screen. And notice that now everything's still kind of spaced out correctly. Man, this input is way too big, my bad guys. So let's say our font size is 20. Let's say our image is, I don't know, 500 pixels. 180 pixels. I don't know. 400 pixels. Okay, so now we got our Vietnam right here. Let's go ahead and add the other links. We'll say, okay, so we're gonna create our bottom footer. And inside of here, we're gonna use Flexbox again, okay? We're gonna have one div, we're gonna call it left, and then we're gonna have another div, and we're gonna call that one right. Because think about it. There's some stuff on the left, there's some stuff on the right, right? And let's go ahead and add some text in here. We're gonna make these all anchor tags. And what's the one? We have advertising, business, about, how search works. And on the right side, what do we have? We have privacy, terms, settings. So you guys will see that we have all our links here, right? But we need to actually split them up so that we understand them, okay? So in that case, now it's time to apply our CSS again, okay? We're gonna say, hey, our left footer, anything with the name of left, we're gonna give it a background color pink. anything with a class name of right, we're gonna give it a background color of green. Okay, so we see that that the pink thing is on top of the orange, the green. So the problem is that what's wrapping our bottom footer thing, our class right here, we need this thing to go from left to right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna target our div that is holding that. Okay, think about it. This div right here, bottom footer, is holding our div that holds left and right. So we're gonna target it. We're gonna say, okay, let's target our bottom footer. We're gonna make its display flex. You guys will now see that that our div goes from left to right with its content. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a padding because we don't want everything touching it. We're gonna give it a padding of 25 pixels, and that seems reasonable. And let's go ahead and do the same thing with our top footer. Okay, maybe 25 pixels is a lot. Let's do 10 pixels. Okay, so now the problem is that these, like, the elements that are inside of our two footer tags right here, our two footer elements, they don't actually take up the full width. So sometimes we're gonna want our elements to fight over space. We're gonna want them to grow dynamically, to be responsive, as well as not like cut off images and all types of other different problems that arise, okay? So in order to do this, we're gonna do something called flex. We're just gonna do flex. I'm just gonna show you guys. This is very difficult to understand. So without seeing the code, so I'm gonna do flex 1, save it. And you guys will now see that when we do that, our pink thing fights to take up as much space as it can. It tries to take up the entire space. If we were to, for example, delete right here, or comment it out, you would see that pink would grow, the pink div, which is which div, guys? What's the name of its class? Left. What I'm saying right. Because we did flex 1 right here. Flex 1, the div that had the class name of left tried to grow, tried to take up the entire space that it could. But if we have another space, it will respect that element. It will not overwrite it. It will respect it, but it will still grow to be as much as it can be. Right? So what happens when you have two elements that are on the same level that also have flex 1? They will both take up the same amount of space. So now you guys will see that the pink div, which is titled left, right, and the green div, which is titled right, take up an equal number of space. We can do this in any number of ways. Imagine what would happen if we did 3 right here. Can someone help me?
75% of the width would be given to that.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So if we give one of them a flex 3 and the other one a flex 1, and they are sibling elements, that means that it just takes the percentage, right? So what is 3 out of 4? 3 out of 4, because we add up the 3 and the 4, that's 75%. So we would expect that our pink element takes up 75% of the space. And that's the behavior we observe. Obviously, if we do the inverse, where we gave the first element 1 and the one on the right 3, we would see that our right grows to take up the most space. Right? So we're going to do 3 and 1 because that's exactly what we see on GitHub or on Google, right? Okay, so now we're going to do the spacing. Let's go ahead and give it the color. Fuck it. So we're going to click this thing. We're going to find our color. Let's set right there. We're going to say, hey, our footer. Let's give it the right background color. We jump back over here. Here's the right color, kind of. Okay, so let's go ahead and give these things a little bit of spacing, okay? So everything within inside of our left or right, I'm not sure if this will work now that I think about it. Anything inside of that that's a left or right that is an anchor tag, it's gonna have margin left, 10 pixels. Okay, I don't think this works out. I thought it would work, my bad. Okay, that worked right there. So we're saying, hey, anything that's inside of left that is an anchor tag, please go ahead and give it a padding left of 10 pixels. We're gonna do the same thing for the right. And now you guys see that we have a little bit of spacing. So now we can go ahead and delete these background colors because we got our elements where we want them to be. We understand where they are on the screen. Okay. Go ahead and delete this orange right here. And we have a little bit of spacing right here. I don't know where this is coming from. We're gonna go down. So this is coming from our body. Our body has a little bit of padding, I think. So jump up to our body, or our star selector. We'll do 0 pixels. Okay, that's not what it is. Padding, 0 pixels. Am I looking at the right thing here?
Margin for footer.
Do I have margin here?
Yeah, it's fine, but we have the lab lecture.
Okay, so I hope you guys had a good idea of now what HTML and CSS does. Do you have any more questions before I go?
That flex stuff, I learned there's this game called Frog Flex, and it's a really cool way of learning the Flexbox Froggy.
So
It's a really cool way of learning how to align things onto the page.
So this is something we do in our class in full stack web development. This is an amazing tool. He's 100% right. This is how I learned how to use Flexbox right here. If you guys want to learn how to use Flexbox, build beautiful UIs, then you need to know how to use this, as well as building mobile apps as well.
How many times did you go through it?
I've done this at least 10 times when I forget. And you guys saw earlier, I still forget sometimes the rules. I forget how they all work together. You guys need to practice. Okay? If you do not practice your skills, you will fail. So that's what it is. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so what do you expect to be able to do after the pre-course about the website, the HTML, the CSS? What do you expect it to do?
I will show you right away.
So you see that right now, we just built Google, more or less.
Well, after the pre-course, I will show you. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Lloyd, very much.
Thank you.
So what